But Brent doesn't want Kepley in the middle. He specifically said, I don't want that motherfucker in my seat ever again. Do you not remember this conversation? He got really mean about it.
He did. He got kind of heated.
I remember that
say
when
we
he
do
was
it
like,
anyway.
Listen, if I'm not on the show because I'm so important, someone else has to be in the middle. Look, Brent, okay, I'm here. It's a better quality show. Everyone knows it. Get used to it. All right.
Drink, drunk.
Ziggy zaggy. Oi,
oi. God, I haven't watched that forever. Yes.
All right, clink, clank. Clink,
clunk,
clink,
clunk.
Oh, clink, clunk. Hello, and welcome to Happy Hour on the Strange Gaming Network. I am one of your hosts, not Brent the Jesterhead Metcalf, because he's currently out sick with the flu.
He's super sus.
Instead, I am one of your hosts, Mark, the Dispatcher. Joined by, on my right, my immediate right.
Oh, me. Hey. I'm Michael, Tumbleweed.
Haven't seen the old Tumbleweed on this podcast in a little while. And doubly on my right,
Handsome John. Good to have you back, Tumbleweed.
Hey.
We are here every week to give you all of the wonderful tech and video game news. There are a lot of things that we would like to talk about with you, but unfortunately there's a lot of things that we can't talk about. I know I'm trying to stick with Brent's format here because I want to keep it, keep it moving in that same way. I really want to bring my own style in here, but it's whatever.
Like I said, you have to talk about
we don't have time to talk about the fact that Activision brings down the hammer with 20,000 bans in Warzone, or that
finally
Borat 2 is set to release on Amazon Prime before Election Day, which sounds amazing.
I can't wait.
And that Stadia is not going to be compatible with the newest Chromecast, which makes no sense whatsoever. They're just digging their grave even deeper. But what we do have time to talk about on this podcast each and every week, just as we like to do with our drinks, as we always do. And I mean, who doesn't love to talk about the special things that are important to us, here on this podcast every week? What we like to call the important shit.
The important shit. I'm sorry, guys. I'm new to this.
You're good.
You're good. Let's see
He's
here.
Trying to stumble me like Brent does, and I wasn't going to let him do it.
All right.
I was conducting the chorus.
John, why don't we start with you here, talking about something about Twitch and finally doing something good for the people on their platform. It's weird. It sounds like something that should be real.
Yeah, it's almost like, are you sure? But it's something that I've been talking about for a long time, and that's, the music that is always covered by DMCA takedown issues with Twitch. And I've always put out, Bass Rebels, for instance, Bass Rebels. They have non-DMCA, no copyright issues. You can use it on your Twitch cast and everything else and not have a problem. So Twitch is now introducing a new feature that gives streamers access to rights cleared music. Ooh. So it's basically a soundtrack by Twitch that gets rid of the DMCA takedown stuff that everybody's been really fretting over, because they'll either have silent parts being taken out of their stream or their entire stream taken down in general. Then they have trouble getting stuff back, or they had to delete their entire backlog because they lost the rights to it or whatever. And it was just a huge hassle.
Yep.
And I'm super excited to see that they're kind of really fixing this, because I like music. Music sets the tone. It's what gets everybody excited. You have a particular interest or a particular like in music that gets other people involved and get them, immersion into watching and listening to what you're talking about. And I feel like this is super important for something like Twitch to ultimately succeed. Really, any streaming video watching service that you're going to have, because it's just it brings out the personality in the streamer, whereas and a lot less just stress. I mean, I don't stream personally. I know you do, Tumbleweed. I don't know how you feel about it, but I would be personally excited.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of the best moves that Twitch has done in a long time. But it also shows that they have capabilities that they can do on their end that they haven't utilized before. And so I think one of the biggest strengths of it is that um, it separates the audio out automatically into its own channel, right?
Yeah.
And so if you download your VOD, your music is separate from it, which is convenient.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it from, when I use OBS, I build all that myself. So for people that maybe, don't have voice meter or don't have a Go XLR and they struggle with multi-tracks, this could be very convenient for you to still keep music. I hope that they open the doors of integration to people that had already built out these huge libraries of music that you could subscribe to or offered free. Big YouTuber I follow, Alpha Gaming, Harris Heller. He's created tons of music with his stream beats, and so if they could work together and he could merge all that in there, that would be super convenient. I personally have a subscription to Epidemic Sound, and so Epidemic has all their music, and I have to put my Twitch channel in there. So if they could let Epidemic merge its library in, it would make all these convenience features. And I hope that that's how they evolve it.
Yeah, actually,
great.
Epidemic Sound's one of the places where the soundtrack for this podcast comes from. The intro song comes from.
Which I love, by the way, Mark. I'm so happy you found that because when I listen to it now, I'm like, yeah, sounds chill.
Yeah, dude, it's good. But it's great that this also puts Twitch on, another even peg with YouTube, right? And YouTube is coming into the streaming space, and YouTube has always had its music library, even though so many YouTube creators forget it exists. It has its own whitelisted music, it has its own whitelisted sound effects. So Twitch has got that now, right? Yep. We're slowly seeing this come together and where they can compete a little easier. So I'm excited to see the future of Twitch.
To be fair, I understand where they're coming from with being a little bit more skeptic too, because you don't want something to change. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that, Google has done something and completely reversed something and all of a sudden now you're SOL and everything that you did was a waste of time. I wouldn't want to take that risk personally. But the fact that they separated the track from the VOD is huge, and you're not going to have to worry about any copyright strikes or any muting.
The benefit of playing the song straight from Twitch is you're not going to have to worry about the copyright strike in the first place. But like when downloading the VOD, it makes sense if you're going to edit, for example, your music is separate from your voice if you want to re-edit or something like that, because that's how a lot of streamers do that too. Is maybe they don't record locally, they instead wait for the VOD to come out, download the VOD, and then work with that, or their editor, will take the VOD, download that, edit it, and then upload for clips for YouTube. So that, I think that's a really good feature to have. I'm always a devil's advocate or an other side of the wall kind of person. So here's my concern: is YouTube has the same kind of offering whenever it comes to editing videos, where you can download. I don't want to answer that right now. No, so YouTube has the same kind of offering though, where you can download some of the available copyright-free audio that they make available to you, and make the you can use that with whatever you want to. It's good for background on vlogs and whatever else. But the selection is rather limited. Now, I haven't actually seen this, so I don't quite know yet.
I can imagine that being true.
But the selection is rather limited, and with thousands to, hundreds of thousands to tens of millions of creators out on the platform, that stuff can kind of get worn down pretty easy. Now, for Twitch streams, it's a little different because most people don't have that as a primary song really blaring in the background. A lot of that stuff's just background music to add as good filler. But for YouTube videos, I know that's primarily something you hear pretty often. Like, I've heard the same song. I've heard the song that we use even from Epidemic Sound, called Duck in a Box. I've heard that used by several other YouTube channels, Potato Jet being one of the more prominent ones. I've heard the same song that we use for this podcast on his channel several times as background music.
I don't blame him. It's a great song.
It is. It's got a good beat to it. But the problem you run into, I think, is if Twitch doesn't offer a big enough soundtrack set, then I think it's going to get overused and it's going to sound generic at a certain point, just because it's going to be an overused sound.
And that's cool. And, and Kepley said, there's other ways to get around it too. There are other means of getting copyright free music. Like I said, Bass Rebels being one of them.
Yeah, Epidemic Sound,
they
whatever, other subscription services that allow that kind of thing or enable that.
Just got to do a little bit more work for it. But, if you want something that just fits the mood and it fits the track, cool. A lot of times it's more of like a transition piece or something like that. It's not really a big deal. Because normally for like what we have for the intro, you have something specific that you like or whatever, or the outro, and you're going to end up using that. Or like, for instance, on Game Scoop, Damon Hatfield uses his music for the outro, and he actually creates his own music. So there's always that option too. So
I'm
a little bit more musically inclined anyway.
Yeah.
I'm curious because I haven't seen where anyone's clarified this, but the music is copyright free on Twitch. But if I were to download that and I really like this song and I take pieces of it and I put it on YouTube, is it still whitelisted, right? And I think that's when you're really going to gauge the like how good this soundtrack is, because you have to have stuff like Stream Beats, for example, with Harris Heller, because that's the one I'm most familiar with. Super good audio selection, but for a short time there, he had issues to where Twitch, everything was good, but on YouTube, the way the algorithm read it, even though he said it was whitelisted and it was free, they would copyright strike it. And so he had to work with people to remove that. And so when Twitch is going to these artists and they're saying, hey, we want to use your music, build us music, because I think they put out a tweet, I'd have to go look. They put out a tweet of like, hey, if you're an artist and you want to work with us, send us music, let us know we can use, right? And so is that artist going to give you licensed stuff just for Twitch? And then there's going to be other conditions that you have to do for YouTube or whatever your platform is, TikTok, wherever you go from there. And that's going to be a whole other conversation you think about when it comes to this music.
And unfortunately, as we go into this beautiful age of technology, there are more and more stipulations. So there's got to be some kind of general agreement that's going to have to start being made. Like if it's created on a system that it was free, then wherever it is transferred or played from is given, some kind of agreement.
Yes and no. I mean, the thing is that you have to sign a consent, or you part of your terms and conditions anywhere, and updated terms and conditions is that it's a consent agreement to say, like as far as the music creators can go, like the consent agreement between them and Twitch is that Twitch can use it in whichever way they want to. But you as a creator on Twitch could flat out say, now don't get me wrong, it would hurt them to do so, I think, because like there are tons and tons of Twitch creators or streamers that also are YouTube creators with the same content that they record. It's not like Twitch owns the content that you stream to them exclusively. So it's going to be a hard spot and realistically, nobody's going to know until it happens. Until somebody finally uploads content with something from this Twitch soundtrack or soundtrack by Twitch that, suddenly either Twitch copyright strikes or doesn't. So
and that's the important caveat to what I mentioned earlier with that is something they called out in why it's a separate audio chat is they said, because if licensing changes, then we don't have to mute your VOD and then we don't have to remove your video, right? Because they could just cut that track instead of cutting your whole video. So the problem with it now is if I play copyrighted music, it'll automatically go in, it'll mute, we'll say 2 hours of my stream because I'm just talking or gaming with music in the background. And so now what this would allow is if whatever music is on that platform, if say 3 weeks from now, John says, hey, Twitch, you're not using my music anymore, I don't give you that rights, they can't use it on the site anymore. And so then they have to go and remove those tracks from everything. And so to keep your VOD alive, it's on a separate audio track. So you don't have to go do mass removals of clips like we had recently with all that drama.
I mean, I guess it depends on how
there has to be something smart done in the fact of the contract saying any creation made before this date or before the date that you asked for it to be removed is clear. Like you don't have a choice. It's like a movie, for instance. If I go and watch a movie from 1994, that music is still on there. It's done. It's been created. It's out in the wild.
The idea is that generally the license for that is in perpetuity. Like I would imagine that Google, for example, with the library of music that they have available for YouTube creators, I'd imagine the licensure for that is in perpetuity because, for example, with YouTube creators, if let's say, for example, they left a loophole that left access for the creator to remove or the publisher to remove that access from Google. Well, then any video that's come out with that, I mean, short of the contract having an exemption for that, any video that has that music in it would have to have all of its audio pulled, or the video itself would have to get pulled.
Yeah.
Or just monetization, to be fair.
Again, it's going to take some people taking the time to do it right the first time, so we don't have this crap happen, because we know it's going to. We are all talking about this for that reason. I'm more of an optimist because I'm not in this genre, and that's why I love you guys, because when I'm an optimist, you guys know when to be the pessimist and vice versa.
I mean, to be fair, I'm the optimist in this scenario too, of like really what I believe is going to happen is I think Twitch is going to set this up. It's going to be available to everyone. And as soon as it is available to everyone, they probably have contracts set up in perpetuity. Jeff Bezos and his entire team is not stupid by any means. You know, they'll know what to do as far as that goes to protect themselves. Is even if
with Luna coming out, that makes sense that they want to perfect this.
Well, yeah. I mean, they want to add to the streaming platform, you know, too, which makes sense. But I guess my thing is, if they're going to set this up and make this available to everyone, it would be stupid for them to not allow Twitch creators to also be able to use the same music on YouTube.
Yeah.
I
just like actually, and I don't know this offhand. Can you use YouTube's like copyrighted stuff or YouTube's creator what do you call it, their library of music available on Twitch?
Some of them, but there's other ones that you can only use if you call out to the person that made it, right? And so in some of those, you'll have to click on. You can use this if you put this in the description.
Well, yeah, but YouTube makes those very clear though, to say that you have to put some sort of, you know, like rights to this anyway. And YouTube does it automatically as well, if I remember right. Like it actually will place a music thing somewhere on it if you're using something from their library. But
I think so, but
or they make it easier, or they make it easier for you to do so. They may not do it automatically because you have to edit the video in, but they make it easier to do so anyway. But like the idea is, yeah, sure. Like for that stuff, sure. But like most of the stuff that I've ever pulled from YouTube from their you know available library, I've made sure that it's something that doesn't require that call out because I don't particularly care to do so anyway. And God forbid I make a mistake on that and not do it, you know? So, I mean, I can find plenty of decent content in there. So, I mean, if that's the case and I can use that on Twitch would be kind of stupid to not be able to reciprocate that same level of content. Not to mention that also makes that content creators on both sides, on both platforms, then have very large, very different libraries to pull from to be able to put that stuff in there. And not to mention even the stuff that's available for both platforms would then be much easier to implement in both platforms.
It just seems disadvantageous to not have a video on your thing making you add money when you can. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to want to take care of business.
But devil's advocate to that is we've seen more and more the battle for exclusivity. Yeah. And so this would just be another way to drive that, right?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The stakes probably going to come somewhere or another, but hopefully they iron it out beforehand.
Yeah. I agree. And I think it's interesting when it comes to music. Like, for example, if I'm Twitch, I think this platform is awesome. I think it's cool. But I take more time on this to work with whoever the powers that be are to partner with Amazon Music and actually give a purpose to Amazon Music where Amazon Music library synchronizes with Twitch and you're paying with your Twitch Prime the rights to use that music on your stream. I think that would have been a much better play.
Oh, I mean, the big play that Amazon could really go for there is working with a publisher to say, hey, we want to make all of your content from all of your artists available on our Twitch platform.
And we're starting to see that, and I think that's going to evolve more. A great example is Logic, one of my favorite artists. He's furious because he wants everyone to be able to use his music, but the publisher will not let them. And so he's saying, I made these songs. This is my music. I want all these Twitch streamers to use it. And the publisher's like, no. We're going to block that.
He can't do that until
Taylor Swift. She knows it all too well.
Yeah. Well, and the problem is he can't make that move until his contract with his current publisher expires, and either he signs a new contract or makes his own publishing company to be able to release any new songs, of course, because the previous publisher owns any of his previous songs. like that for free. So I think that's an interesting standpoint to take. I like Logic is one of my favorite people as far as how he handles his own position in the music career too.
Why doesn't he buy back the rights?
So the problem is that the publisher can set the price on that.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
if he's the only buyer, they set the price at whatever the hell they want to make it. They can make it $100 million for a single song if they really wanted to, and not give up the rights because they think they're going to be able to make more money on that in perpetuity. Like, what's the point?
Who's actually a fan of him would just go out and say, you know what?
But
don't play my song ever again.
Part of that is, under that publisher, if he signs with a new publisher, just like what Taylor Swift ran into the issue with, if they don't want to, like, Taylor Swift literally can't perform some of those original songs in concerts anymore because she doesn't own the rights to them, even though she created them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like that's just that's the unfortunate truth there is if you push back against those publishers, they have the ability to cut off your ability to use your own songs at a certain point. And unfortunately, that's the money grab of the industry. But
well, hopefully Amazon's got their stuff together, and with Luna coming down the way, I hope that that gets solidified. Not to mention Stadia has their own thing going on, and we've got we got a lot of new stuff happening with Stadia, and hopefully that they do something similar, so that way we can kind of have like a nice transition between the Google products and the Twitch products.
Yeah. We'll see. Kep, you had one more point, or?
No, I'm good on that one.
All right. Well, speaking of Stadia, our own Tumbleweed has a particular topic on something called crowd choice, and something that Stadia maybe had probably already promised and is finally happening, I guess, or something along those lines.
So very interesting, right? Here we are, I think 10 months later after having Stadia, and we finally get this feature.
Oh my God. Choice, it's been 10 months. Oh my God, that just hit me.
It feels like yesterday, doesn't it?
No, it feels like a few months, but like table. It didn't feel like 10. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this year has flown considering all the circumstances. But the reason that I bring this up is because if we don't talk about Stadia, absolutely nobody will. And so
fair enough.
Have to. And so technically this week, but today is officially when I think it matters that crowd choice was introduced to Stadia. And I think that it's interesting, right? Because you have this stream integration when you stream from Stadia, which I've still not tested yet because I can't do it from a TV, and when I'm on my computer, I might as well use Steam. But you go in here, and when you're playing through these games, there's only 2 games right now. One of them just released today in early access, and that's Baldur's Gate 3. And the other one came out on the 1st, and that is Dead by Daylight. And so what this does is when you are playing through the game, Dead by Daylight is free right now for Stadia Pro members, by the way, to pick up.
Realize that.
You go through, and when you're streaming and you have to make a decision in the game, right? Do I kill this person? What do I do? Who do I play? You can come up on stream, and your viewers can interact with your stream to vote on things, right? At the time, it seemed huge, right? When Stadia announced it's like, oh my God, we're going to have all of this built-in voting and integration. Is going to be awesome.
Interaction is going to be through the roof.
The problem is, and why this isn't a big deal now, is because they're too late to the party. We're 10 months after Stadia release, and Twitch has been doing this more and more, right? We started with Hyperscape. We started before that. We started with Darwin Project, as far as I know, for the first one. There's been Twitch API add-ins or whatever where you can view people's stats and all that. But you have this feature that you can't even say anymore is exclusive to Stadia, because Baldur's Gate 3 can do it on Stadia, but also there's a Twitch add-in for Baldur's Gate 3 on Twitch that lets you do the same thing. You're voting on your streamers' choices. You can see their character stats live through the interface. And it's like, this is great. And I really think still, as bad as Stadia's let us all down, that cloud gaming is a future, right? And I think, in my opinion, until something can prove me otherwise, I think it is the future. It's just it needs to be implemented correctly. And so to kind of go back to what you said, John, with Luna coming out for Amazon, and we have xCloud really jumping up, and Sony has some of their stuff, is I hope developers start actually taking this more serious and putting more time into it. I know COVID has slowed the world down, but I feel like Stadia has just really dropped the ball in a way I just couldn't have ever imagined for Google to do.
Google is such a different company, but at the same time, remember, PlayStation also was an underdog at one point in time. It was super behind Nintendo. I mean, people.
Right, and anyone that talks to me about streaming, they know that I think YouTube streaming is the future. Right, I think YouTube is eventually going to take over, and that is your biggest selling point with Stadia. And I still don't think we have the interactions of when I'm playing through a game on Stadia and I need to know how to do something, I quick pull up a YouTube video guide. Because I think that once that implementation happens, it's going to take Stadia to a whole new level. But the problem is, it took us 10 months to get something that Twitch built almost instantaneously, right?
Yeah.
So when are you ever going to get this integration in here? And when are you ever going to make it super user friendly? And the network that you promised that it would take, at least in this household, is not what it actually is, because we have really good network overall. But when I do Stadia on wireless, I can't. It's not playable. I'm not going to be able to stream it.
There are three arguments that I really feel are important to when it comes to the streaming conversation and choices, or even doing anything involving recording, is going to be your network and speeds, which not everyone has the speeds to deal with this kind of stuff, including Stadia or any type of streaming, even not reliably. And then you have your service, ease of use. How easy is it going to be for people to go from the streaming to the storage, or from the editing to the storage to the deliverable product? And then you have your add-ons, like we just talked about with music. Are those going to be easy adaptions? And who's going to have the best bundle is going to be whoever wins this game.
Yeah, I think Stadia has the most unanswered questions as far as that goes too. So, like, the whole point of Stadia with live streaming anyway, specifically to YouTube gaming, because, you know, of course, Google wants to make it an all-in-one package, is if you're streaming to YouTube gaming, well, obviously it streams from, you know, the Stadia servers directly to YouTube gaming, but how do I add in the other things that I normally do, like my overlays and my music and things like that, and that leaves some room there for questions, you know. So then how these integrations work as well with that, you know. Better yet, like YouTube gaming, I agree, I honestly thought at one point Mixer was sort of the next generation platform of what had the most potential, just because it focused very much on user interaction and making that open and available to a ton of people. Twitch has definitely caught up, and I guess realize that, you know, the competition is there for that. But YouTube is definitely still a very good leader in the way that works. And their implementation for that, unfortunately, Twitch still holds the primary market share on that by like a solid 30% at least. It was very much like Twitch owns the majority share here. But so the issue that I see Stadia having with even integration of these new features, regardless of the fact that they're finally implementing something new, and Kepley, you're very much right. They're super late to the party here. This was something that they touted, 12 months ago. This is something they touted 12 months ago and said, you know, user interactions and the ability to join your creators and you know, or pick up where they left off or make decisions for them, that kind of thing. That's something that's very much going to be a reality here. You know, and the idea is that it's going to be direct game integration, not so much necessarily something that has to be done with an API, or they have to make the decision based on what their people vote for. Because there are workaround, you know, implementations like this for Twitch, which don't directly influence, you know, the game itself. But the first hurdle that Stadia had to get past is the fact that game developers have to develop the game for Stadia to be played on Stadia.
Yeah.
That's the first hurdle in and of itself. And this is something we talked about last week whenever we talked about Luna, was that Luna uses Windows servers to be able to play the existing games that you may already have. You have to purchase, you may or may not have to purchase new licenses. We don't know yet. But the idea is that they're played on Windows servers to be able to continue whatever development that the existing developers have already built in for these things to make adaptation pretty easy for them. Stadia, unfortunately, runs everything on Linux, just because that's Google. You know, that like everything that they do is on Linux. So that means that the games had to be adapted to the Linux environment to be able to play it on this. I think that Stadia already has too many hurdles as it is to really make this a viable product in the long term. If we're shifting if we're going to the conversation of whether or not this is viable in the long term, I think Stadia is probably putting themselves in a harder place to make that work.
I think unless they do a total revamp of what they're doing and move to more of a model of what Luna is doing and trying to make themselves marketable in other ways, such as the ease of use for streamers and add-ons and storage and deliverables and all that other stuff, I feel like they could still be the uprising Sony that Kepley sees.
Well,
but
Right.
until
Well, and
then, they're not going to be competitive.
And what I think is important is that, and I've not tested this personally, but streaming Stadia would, in actuality, already be so much easier for content creators, right? If you're at your desktop, you just load the game from their server. You probably have a wired connection. You can still build all your overlays and all that stuff. So you're good, right? Because you remove the stress of your PC actually playing the game, because all you're doing is receiving a stream and you're just outputting video, right? So you're basically, in essence, have a virtual 2 PC setup stream, which everyone, if you're a main streamer, everyone wants a 2 PC setup, right? But the issue is that when you take that Chromecast Pro and you hook it up to your TV and you run that HDMI source into a laptop because you don't have a high-end desktop and you want to stream and you want to do your gameplay, well, it turns out it blocks it, right? As we learned long ago when you guys tried to do it for the podcast.
Game night with playing trials or something,
You remove the convenience of anyone being able to stream easier, right? Because I don't need a crazy high-end laptop if all the gaming power is just coming from a server on my network. My basic laptop opens the door for me to put a basic UI together and stream. And that's where you barricade yourself, is however you fix that.
Yeah.
And I think that Google probably doesn't really know how to fix that, which is probably why that new Chromecast isn't going to have Stadia support, because they were like, let's back off of this.
Wait, you talk about the new Google TV? Oh, well, yeah, the new Chromecast, but the new Google TV thing's not supposed to have Stadia support specifically either.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, is maybe they're like, oh, we didn't think about whatever it's called. Like, I forget what that blocker's called.
They have so much potential, and they half-ass freaking everything.
Yeah,
there's like no forethought put into things.
But I think this is
throw it at the wall
kind
of
of
sticks theory.
Like this is kind of one of the things of like, you can kind of use it as a scapegoat, right? This is Google's MO, right? They don't necessarily care if they're the best on a new product, but they want to scare everyone else into doing it. And so they'll introduce these thoughts and these ideas to get people thinking about it. And then you have someone like Amazon be like, we're going to do that better. And then Google will eventually just be like, all right, we're done. Thank you guys for making this product.
We've bettered the world as a result here. We don't care anymore. So
yeah, that's it. We're going to go back to doing other stuff. We'll come back with a new genius idea and force people to talk about it later. They've done it with Google Fiber. They've done it with they had a cell phone plan back in the day.
Google Fi. Google Fi. I mean, Google Fi is still probably the only one of its kind, though. There's nothing else quite like that exists yet. So,
well, it made people, I think, innately think about phone plan prices, because it was super low phone plan. So you have something like the Sprints and the T-Mobiles probably impacted, but Verizon was probably like, yo, dog, like Google, you intimidating, but we Verizon. Like,
we're Verizon. We still have the best connectivity, the best coverage, the best everything else except for pricing available in the country, so we don't care.
Yeah, right.
They're worth the money.
Unfortunately, yes, they are.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is I think Google just wanted to play this big stage, get people talking about it. I still give money to Stadia Pro because I want to fund it and I believe in the idea of it, right? And I hope it succeeds in the same way that I will try the Luna for Amazon and be like, hey, please make this a thing, because that's the perfect thing for someone like my parents, right? Where we are from, the country, the internet's not as great, but if you can make something to where they don't need to go out and they need to buy these expensive consoles all the time, we can just buy games. It streamlines everything for the whole family, right? It was probably tough on anyone, right, to buy a console for me, my dad, my middle brother, and then now my younger brother, right? And so you just simplify the whole thing with accounts and game access, do family, however you do that. I like the idea. Conceptually, I think it's the best thing in the future for casual gamers. We just need the right implementation of it.
Yeah, 100%. I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Whole heart.
Oh, a whole heart. Is that what that X symbol, you know, the top half of that X is supposed to be, or
No,
maybe
this
like
is the-
like
This is
PlayStation,
the sign of winning.
maybe PlayStation
Winning.
instead of having it at like just an X, a square, circle, and triangle, that it's just a heart, you know, like they have a heart symbol.
X
you know?
marks the spot of victory. That's what that means. Yep.
And it also means cross your heart, hope to die. No. Anyway, finally moving on. Unless somebody else has another.
Oh no, let's get
Good
into
point.
your riveting topic.
Yeah.
Let's get into. Well, you were just talking about ISPs, and honestly, it's a wonderful role, you know, into my topic this week. Where AT&T, one of, you know, like the leading companies available for fiber and for DSL services, anyway, across specifically the United States.
In my
AT&T
house.
has very specifically said that they are no longer going to allow new customers to sign up for DSL.
Dick
And
sucking
it-
lips.
Comes with very surprising numbers.
But Mark, DSLA
I'm just gonna keep
is
moving
the old
on,
days. Why do
because
we
I'm going to
care?
ignore everything that John says. Anyway, why would you possibly want to upgrade, you know, like your existing services, or allow people to sign up for new services that you still offer and available to specifically people's neighbors, for example, because it's something that it's available. So DSL, for those who don't know, direct subscriber line is an old form of doing giving accessibility to high speed internet service in a similar fashion to cable internet, just like what Spectrum, in some places Comcast and whatnot still offer, where everything goes over a coaxial cable line that would come in your house. The difference is that DSL, direct subscriber line, is done over twisted pair phone line from your house. And the idea is that your internet speeds are your internet speeds, whereas and it's kind of a weird mix of cable companies mix the internet bandwidth available to individuals over the coax line back and forth over certain frequencies and have to merge those together. Whereas direct subscriber line, well, your house has a direct phone line or twisted pair set that runs all the way to a particular switch somewhere that belongs to the phone company, whether that be all the way in their own building or at a hub somewhere, which is then provided by fiber. So direct subscriber line is supposed to give you faster, more reliable internet speeds than cable is to some extent. The difference is that cable now has such advancements that you can actually get gigabit internet, for example, over your cable line if it's provided in your area. Happily knows that it very much is not in all places. I know as well, it's not available always in such places. So the numbers that come with this anyway, in particular, first off, this is a huge hit. To the availability of internet access across the country. Now, as far as the actual accessibility numbers of DSL, they're relatively low from a numbers perspective as opposed to a percentage perspective here. So, in rural counties specifically, only 5% of households have access to fiber. 200, specifically the number is 217,284 out of 442,675. And the idea is, like, realistically, DSL is better suited over long distances for like rural areas, which is where this generally comes into play here. The other side of this anyway is apparently 70% of households in urban counties still lack access to AT&T fiber, because only 14.7 million households out of 48.4 million total households in their coverage areas have access to fiber, which makes me feel a little bit more special, to be honest. You know,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I have AT&T fiber here, gigabit AT&T fiber, to be fair.
Yeah,
But the hard part about this specifically is AT&T has already put out a statement previously stating that they're not going to expand their fiber network much more than it already exists past its current level, because they don't see a reason to from a financial perspective. It doesn't make financial sense for them to continue to expand their fiber network because of the cost of doing so, because the way that they do fiber is a fiber to the point as opposed to a fiber to the node. So there's two different methods, and I've explained on the podcast before about two different methods. Fiber to the point is a physical piece of glass fiber in a small wire line that runs into your household, into a converter box that then makes, whatever internet speeds available to you. Fiber to the point runs it to, fiber to the node runs it to a node hub, for example, that then may have coax or twisted pair or something else that runs out from it there. And the idea is that you still get gigabit speeds or fiber speeds out of it. It just has to be converted into another medium before it's run into your house, because it may be too expensive, for example, to run fiber for, 800 yards, from one place to another, which fiber can run that far. Fiber can run like somewhere around, I think it's 10 miles.
Yeah.
Before it's. But running fiber hubs and switches can be expensive, but running twisted pair or running on existing phone lines or cable that might be available to your home is much cheaper. So it makes more sense to do that. So the problem you run into here is that because AT&T is not implementing a fiber to the node setup, they're doing fiber to the point specifically because it gives better speeds. They're only focusing on wealthier neighborhoods and wealthier areas to implement that kind of technology. But then at the same time, they're shutting out new DSL customers with the intent of, more than likely, if this is what they're going, this is my own, prediction on this, that they're going to roll this out over time. Now, the problem with their existing DSL service is that some of the DSL service doesn't even meet the current definition of broadband to the FCC. So broadband to the FCC beforehand was something much lower, something probably around like 5 megabit per second down and about like 768 kilobytes up, because internet demand was relatively low at that point. But applications have obviously become more data heavy. Just to load Facebook, for example, even requires a decent internet connection or a